If you do well, well done, mera sher putar, is what we say in India. Or if you cry, are you a girl? That's the most toxic, heart aching statement I've ever heard in my life, right? Why are we associating tears with feminine energy? Yeah, it's human energy.
Sohini Rora, counseling psychologist, mental health advocate, and author, works at the intersection of emotional awareness and identity, helping people navigate trauma, redefine strength, and embrace healthier ways of being.
What happens when a father is physically or emotionally absent? How does that shape a boy growing up?
I think the boy learns at a very young age to parent himself. So if your father is absent, you feel unsafe. So you become hyper in terms of taking care of your own safety. So now I have to make sure I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. There's no dad. I'm not safe. Should I go here? So you live in fear.
So if a woman is watching this show, she might be like, oh my god, that's happening in my life. Let me try and change it. Like you said, the avoidant, the man will be like, yes, thodi hota hai.
Ah.
So they will still go into that avoidant phase faster than a woman.
They're wired like that. It's a wiring. It takes crying. It takes having an outburst of anger and then saying, okay, I'm angry now, but the anger is representing a deeper emotion. So what is that? And you're like, oh, I'm actually disappointed about the fact that I failed. Oh my God, I failed. Now I am ashamed. A person who's emotionally disconnected will use humor to be condescending, to avoid, to shame. So
Right.
it's not about what you're doing, it's about how you're showing up when required.
I'm sure there's deep down bitterness in that relationship, just not accepted on the surface.
Correct. And then you subconsciously self sabotage.
To start off, can you describe what is the emotional landscape of men today?
In my opinion, the emotional landscape of men is evolving. You know, we're at that junction where they are aware that they can be in touch with their emotions and they want to be in touch with their emotions. They're having more conversations about their feelings and learning to set more boundaries when it comes to their emotions, and healthy boundaries. But are we really providing them the safety that they need? Have they been taught the vocabulary of feelings, like I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling sad? Or are they still being pushed into avoidance? That's my question.
I think by and large, if you see the generation of our grandparents, our parents, and our generation, I think men would still be avoidant.
Yeah.
I think moving forward, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whichever generation is after that, I think they're a little more emotionally aware.
Right.
And I think the maturity is coming in because that whole sexism is ending between men and women, which starkly existed
Yeah.
until our generation.
It's
I would
still
say.
transiting, you know.
It's still that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I think by the next two generations, I think this whole
Yeah.
stark difference between the genders will come down in terms of emotions and emotional regulation.
Yeah.
But I do think it exists as of now.
Right.
So, what do you think boys really need emotionally and psychologically to grow into well-rounded men?
I think boys, for starters, need young parents like us to become more self aware. Self aware of me as a mother, to know that I'm smothering my son. Am I being emotionally codependent on my son and finding my yin yang balance because I'm in an unhappy marriage now?
Yeah.
Or am I so preoccupied trying to survive that I'm being avoidant of his emotions? Right? Fathers, on the other hand, need to learn to be in touch with themselves. It's okay to shed a tear if your parent passed away. It's okay to feel scared if you've lost a business transaction. We need to learn to be that, be exemplary to our children for starters. Also, boys, mostly boys, are rewarded for performance.
Only performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do well, well done, mera sher putar, is what we say in India. Or if you cry, are you a girl? That's the most toxic, heart aching statement I've ever heard in my life. Right? Why are we associating tears with feminine energy.
Yeah.
It's human energy.
Correct. Absolutely.
So this disparity, I feel we need to immediately merge the separation as young parents starting now.
Yeah, because emotions aren't given by gender or sex.
Yeah.
Emotions are given because humans experience
Yeah.
emotions. We're the only
Yeah.
species that experience emotions, and they're not divided like anger and masculinity and these things are male energy,
Yeah.
and anything soppy and anything
Yeah.
love oriented is also female
Yeah,
energy.
absolutely.
Because men shouldn't even show love. Why just anger and
Yeah.
despair?
Yeah.
Even love or loving emotions are more emoted towards women.
Correct.
Like men don't show it, men don't have it, and they have it, it's suppressed, and it's okay because that's manly of him.
Absolutely.
So why that mindset, do you think?
It's conditioning. Back in the day, you go far, far back in the day during the wartime when so many soldiers were dying, fighting for the country, and men are also just built stronger, right? So it's a conditioning that you are strong, show your muscle. They have big shoulders, they have these biceps, big chest, and they have a very comforting, secure energy about them. So, how do you feel safe if this strong energy is crying?
Yeah.
Right? And back in the day, we actually required them to be physically strong for us. And that's where the whole confusion came, that you have to be strong, you can't cry. You have to be strong, you can't be afraid. You have to succeed because now you're looking after your neighbor because she's become a widow. You're looking after your wife, your mother, your children. So just be strong. Don't give in to emotions. So I feel it's come from there. But it's evolved now. It's changed. Everyone knows how to survive and stand up for themselves.
Correct. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
this whole concept of damsel in distress, I don't think exists anymore. In reality, it does
Yeah.
exist conditionally,
Correct.
like you said.
Correct.
People are still conditioned
Correct.
to think like that,
Correct.
but in actual, it doesn't exist.
No.
So that mindset of women need to be rescued, women need to be saved, women need to be taken care of in every aspect possible. I think that kind of shifts men from addressing their emotions to just being emotionally numb.
It does exist to an extent, but it's evolving.
Yeah, I think moving forward,
Yeah.
it wouldn't really exist.
Yes.
So we often hear this term, Peter Pan syndrome, thrown around. From a psychological perspective, can you explain what it is and what does it entail?
So Peter Pan syndrome is not a clinical diagnosis, but it basically means that the man is unwilling or unable to give in to his own emotional depth, emotional responsibility, and dive into any relational responsibility on the whole. He'd rather stay on the surface where he's not willing to grow up. So he may be successful at his work, he may have a huge friend circle, he may even have a girlfriend, but how deep is he diving into the emotional responsibility and the emotional space? They prefer to stay out of it and be avoidant of that.
Can you give us an example of someone who's come to you with Peter Pan syndrome and completely oblivious to the fact that they had it?
A lot of men do. A lot. I have a client who doesn't live here. He is on a plane 25 days a month. That's how hard he works. That's how successful he is. He has a wife. He has children. So we did a family therapy session, and both his kids and his wife complained about the fact that he's a great provider, but the whole emotional load is on them, because not only is he physically absent, he's also emotionally absent. And their complaint was that we don't want him to stop living his life. Let him travel, let him work. He's built this whole empire, but he just needs to show up when we call. He needs to be able to say, I hear you. Their main problem was that they feel emotionally unheard by him.
Yeah, I think, you spoke about providing. So I think men confuse the word providing. So they think financial providing
Correct.
covers everything,
Or safety.
or safety. And
Yeah.
if I provided financially, what more can I do for this marriage, or what more can I do for my children?
Yeah.
But like you very rightly said, in the end, it's the emotional needs being fulfilled, it's the emotional needs being met
Yeah.
that kind of completes a family or a family equation or any relation, for that matter.
There's
whether
no
it be-
concept of emotional safety. They aren't taught that. They are taught safety. Safety means, do you have shelter? Are you getting good food? Can you go to a doctor and pay for it safely? You have all the resources, you're safe. What are you complaining about?
Yeah.
I'm complaining about the fact that I'm emotionally unheard. I'm walking on eggshells. I can't tell you how I feel, what I need, how depressed I am, how lonely I'm feeling. I need you to show up and say, look, I've got you. I don't want so much. I don't want so much in terms of shopping or products. I need you.
Yeah, the
You know?
materialism will
Yeah.
die out after a bit. In the end, we all want to
Correct.
be emotionally fulfilled, right?
Correct.
Materialistically, it's very temporary.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what leads to men to stay in this adolescent phase instead of growing up?
First of all, it's a lack of awareness. They've never been taught. They haven't been taught something as basic as the emotional language. Like, there is emotion beyond anger, beyond avoidance, beyond passive aggression even.
Correct.
There's a whole list of emotions. And let me assure you, you are feeling all of them. Even if you don't want to, you're feeling them.
Yeah.
Because you're human. And it's a default response to experiences. Feelings, emotions are built by your experiences. You are going to feel them. So they first need to be taught that there's this whole emotional wheel that belongs to you. Secondly, have they ever seen their fathers do it?
I doubt it.
No, they haven't. So they don't even know it exists.
There's no example to follow.
Exactly. So they'll end up staying there. And then it just becomes like a default conditioning that you're just kind of following because that's all you know. So you'll end up staying there. And then when you find a partner who's emotionally demanding, according to you, you run because now you need to work. And you're not running because you want your relationship to fail. You're running because you've never been taught to have simple conversations, to be able to access your own emotions and say that you're hurting me. Because then that makes you weak, right?
So do you think Peter Pan syndrome is more common now than in the past generations?
No. I think now there's more of a self-awareness. Now we are more aware and we're being able to spot it because not only are the men becoming aware of their emotions, even females are coming in touch with what they really want. They know what their needs are, what their desires are. They are able to set boundaries. They're able to stand up for themselves. So there's a holistic awareness that's happening. So it's coming into the spotlight. Earlier it was accepted.
Yeah, I think women were asked to accept
Yeah.
men being just manly and not really giving into any array of responsibility when it came to emotional regulation. But I think, like you rightly said, if women started addressing it, men started addressing it,
Correct.
on a whole,
Correct.
it brings about a change.
Ye-
How can you tell the difference between someone who's just fun-loving and youthful and someone who's avoiding growing up?
Oh, that's such a sweet question. So there's a basic separation. Someone who's youthful is connected. Someone who's emotionally stunted is disconnected. A youthful person may use humor, fun, and playfulness to connect. A person who's emotionally disconnected will use humor to be condescending, to avoid, to shame. So
Right.
it's not about what you're doing, it's about how you're showing up when required. One is connection and one is disconnection. So, for example, I have a friend who is, he's a fun-loving guy. Everybody loves him because he's full of humor
And a crowd pleaser.
and a crowd pleaser. But he's also very condescending, especially if he's called out. So he will use humor and he will crack a joke about someone's makeup or lipstick. And she starts shrinking and she starts pleasing him.
Got it.
Whereas everyone in the room is having a good laugh. So he's not using humor to connect. On the other hand, if he was using humor to connect, he would probably call her out in a more endearing, charming way, where he is respectful of her and he's still playful. And she will enjoy that feeling. She will feel safe. So, am I feeling safe or am I feeling unsafe? That's how you recognize if the humor is being used in a healthy way or an unhealthy way.
So there's this term, I think it's called nowadays man-child. Is that what you call a man-child now?
Boys will be boys. So a man-child is basically someone who's not willing to grow up.
That's exactly what we spoke about.
Yes. Who's choosing to stay emotionally stunted. I have a client, in fact, just 3 days ago. I've been working on him for about good 6 months. And because we've been working and he's showing up week on week, but no progress on paper. Because he's like, I will not address my emotions. I will not accept that I am vulnerable and I feel these feelings. But because he was coming to therapy, they started coming up and he started getting anxiety attacks. In session, he's like, I can't breathe. And I don't usually touch my clients, but I felt I had to because he was having a very bad panic attack. And I put my hand on his heart. And then I took his hand and I placed it on his heart. And I instructed him to breathe and do some
breath work.
Yeah. This man started crying. He cried and 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 he just wouldn't stop crying. It took me so much work to align him again. I was doing an internal dance because I was like, yay!
Finally cracked
it. But if you see my WhatsApp, it's full of apologies. I'm sorry. I'm so ashamed of myself. I don't think I can come back to therapy.
Oh my God. So he still thinks as a negative trait that he showed.
He's embarrassed. He's like, I can't stop replaying what you saw. So when I asked him, how are you feeling? He said, I'm feeling really heavy, but there's a strange freedom attached to my heaviness. So I explained to him because he's healing. It's a process. But he doesn't want to come back because he's ashamed and he's embarrassed of my judgment, knowing that I'm probably the safest space he has. And he still can't get himself to come back. So how is he going to address these emotions to his wife or his friends or his daughter?
Correct.
And it breaks my heart. He is going to come back, but he'll take his time. But it breaks my heart to see what a man needs to go through simply because he's just taught these unhealthy beliefs about himself and his feelings and his emotions. It's heartbreaking.
So where do you think suppression comes from? Do you think suppression is taught by mothers, fathers, societal, or do you think home environments make them feel a certain way that they have to suppress their emotions because they'd be seen as weak or emotionally available, which they shouldn't be?
It comes from everywhere. Go back to your Cinderella and Rapunzel. The man saves her. So these are all spoken about from a female's perspective. That you're not weak, you're not a princess, this is rubbish. But are the men told you don't always have to rescue, you don't always have to support, you don't always have to hold ground. It's okay to rest. It's okay to just say, I can't do it now, I'll do it later.
Yeah.
It's okay to cry, it's okay to feel, it's okay to fall down, it's okay to get up again, it's okay to fall again. You're not defined by your strength.
You're not.
You simply are human. I'm going back to the basic fact that you're not man or woman, you're just human. And you will feel, and you will fall, and you will be weak, and you will try again, and you will rise. And that's just the graph of life, of being human.
Do you think this kind of behavior impacts how their children act as well, daughters and sons?
Of course. Of course. Daughters may land up growing, first of all, thinking that they're incapable because they're dependent. Also, putting undue pressure on their men for their own survival. So I am so dependent on you. I'm so codependent on you that I'm going to take all my weight, emotional, financial, physical, safety, all of it, and just lean on you. And now you have to work. And I am working as a man. I'm striving, I'm working, I'm striving. I can't set boundaries because I've grown up seeing that. Or I become completely avoidant. I'm like, you go survive. My hands are up. I have seen enough and more. And because girls grow up seeing this dynamic of boys don't cry, boys are strong, I am fragile, I am a princess, save me. They land up choosing the bad boys, so to say. The emotionally avoidant boys, the boys who aren't available, the push-pull dynamics of I will breadcrumb you and keep you, and then I'll disappear, and then you will hurt, and then you will chase them. And that whole circle lands up coming from seeing an emotionally avoidant father and a fragile mom. And you replay that pattern because that's all you know, and that feels safe.
Yeah. I think seeing emotionally unavailable fathers does lead to a lot of complicated thought processes in women. And I see that around me, where they even think that my father was very dominant with my mother. My father had these moments of bursts of anger, and otherwise he was a very calm, collected, working man. So it's okay if my husband does it.
Correct.
It's like that repetition, like you said, your first primary role model had so much going on, and you think that's okay because it worked for them, it'll work for me.
Correct.
But then you are emotionally aware, let's say your mother wasn't, you are not going to accept these things because your mother did. Because today, the world is different. You are exposed to so much information and knowledge concerning psychology, mental health, wellness that your mother wasn't. So how can you deal with things that she dealt with so easily? Although you're replaying exactly the same emotions and you are trying to accept it, but you will struggle.
But the same, yeah.
How will you be able to, or how will, let's say the other flip side, how will the son who has seen the damsel in distress mother, the mother who was the only one crying to the son or to the daughter because she couldn't voice her emotions and opinions to the father, because back then it was like that. Women didn't really speak up to their husbands, didn't really say what they really wanted. They would in fact narrate all of that to their children. I'm feeling so this. They use emotion, like they use their children as emotional crutches.
Yeah.
So now that son is also grown up thinking that's what women are like. Women are supposed to be weak and emotionally distressed and bicharis. And when they meet a strong girl, they're like, oh my God, she's so opinionated. I don't want a girl like that.
Correct.
They're not
She's too much.
Yeah.
But going back to men, they are also struggling, right? I'm supposed to be strong, like my client, who's ashamed and embarrassed about the fact that he cried. So he's hiding. So they're also struggling.
I agree. Men are struggling, and that's my point. Like, it's the role model thing. I feel like if they had little better role modeling, then they would have seen better dynamics. They would enhance those further. But they're enhancing the crazy dynamics that they've seen 2 generations back, 1 generation back, and they're replaying it, which won't work in today's society.
No,
and also it's sad because I think by and large, women tend to tune in faster than men. So if a woman is watching this show, she might be like, oh my God, that's happening in my life. Let me try and change it. Like you said, the avoidant, the man will be like, yes, thodi hota hai. So they will still go into that avoidant phase faster than a woman.
Correct.
Because that's just the societal conditioning.
They're wired like that. It's a wiring. Like your parents come and they put these wires and they, this wire will connect with this wire. And now you have to undo the whole thing again. And that takes so much work. It takes crying. It takes having an outburst of anger and then saying, okay, I'm angry now. But the anger is representing a deeper emotion. So what is that? And you're like, oh, I'm actually disappointed about the fact that I failed. Oh my God, I failed. Now I am ashamed. And now I have to look at myself and say, you are a failure. I'm ashamed of you. Then you're like, I'm not doing this work.
I rather not.
Yeah, it's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. I'll just start again. I'll pay that guy. He'll fix the job. I'll ignore my wife. She'll calm down. Everything will come back to normal. And I'll go back to avoidance because I've not been taught that there's no shame attached to emotion.
So let's talk about the father wound.
Hmm.
What does it actually really mean in terms of a boy's emotional development?
Let's first understand the father wound. I don't think the father wound comes from the absence of the parent. I think it comes more from the absence of being heard, being held, being validated, being acknowledged, being picked up when you fall down and you're like, it's okay, let's restart. I think it comes from there. And this wound creates, this experience creates a void, which then eventually becomes a wound that now we are carrying into adulthood. Still feeling unseen, still feeling unheard, still working endlessly to be approved by the father, to be acknowledged by him. The father is 80 years old, he doesn't have teeth, his dentures are falling off while he's talking. But I still want him to say, well done, son. And a lot of men don't ever hear that because the father himself doesn't know he's supposed to say it.
Correct.
He thinks he's being a great dad by keeping the son a threat so that he becomes stronger and he becomes wiser and he learns to survive. But actually, he's breaking that man.
Also, like you said, the right word, performance. Because it's performance driven,
Yes.
the father thinks this is the best way to get his son to perform in any aspect of life.
Yeah, absolutely. So this wound then becomes an indicator and the basis of how you manage all your relationships then. And primarily, I can go into the technicalities of what he does with his wife or his girlfriend or his daughter or his son, but I want to talk about what he does with himself. It creates a disconnection with the self. You are not at all aware of who you truly want to be. You're becoming who your father wants you to become. You're playing a role that you've been taught or that you're expected to play. You have no clue. I want to be an artist. I want to sit in my pajamas and paint. But no, I have to go out there and I have to do this business or that, or be a doctor, or, work in real estate, or whatever you're expected to. So that's that wound and that void you carry and you keep trying to fill. And I don't think it ever really gets filled unless you come back here. Who am I? And what do I really want to be?
And what fulfills me?
Correct.
Also, I've seen, like you said, the father may be 80 and dentures falling off. I have seen people who have lost the father and still have the father wound and carrying it on till their dying day. It doesn't end. That cycle doesn't end because they are still waiting somewhere. My father's watching me. He wanted me to become a pilot. I am today a pilot, a miserable pilot emotionally, but he wanted me. So I'm still trying to fulfill his wishes.
Correct.
So yeah, you're right. It just carries on. It never ends.
It never ends. It only ends when you say, well done. I am proud of you. I have chosen me. I am doing what I love doing. And I am undefined by my father's praise or his criticism or anything. I just am.
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult, state of mind to be in. And I think that it takes a lot of emotional awareness to get there. And I hope that's what people work towards. That's what we are here for. That's what this conversation is for. That even people who don't even think they're in this pattern, they might just be. If people see their sons, brothers, husbands, partners, whoever, friends, if they're in this pattern, they may not even recognize it, right?
Yeah.
And that I think the first step is recognition.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that I am facing this and I am living with this mindset.
Yeah.
So tell me, what happens when a father is physically or emotionally absent? How does that shape a boy growing up?
I think the boy learns at a very young age to parent himself. So if your father is absent, you feel unsafe. So you become uh, hyper in terms of taking care of your own safety. So now I have to make sure I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. There's no dad. I'm not safe. Should I go here? So you live in fear. Okay. So, and then that eventually makes you hyper independent. So when I'm hyper independent, I can't share emotional space with anyone because I'm good. I've learned.
To survive alone.
Correct. But your innate, your core nature is to want companionship, is to want friends, is to actually rest and relax and let go and cry. We have tear ducts. But we're not doing that. So I'm extremely unhappy and I'm angry and I'm avoidant and I'm frustrated. Okay. And emotionally, I don't have someone to go to. I only learn that I will be emotionally looked after and validated if I perform, if I succeed, if I win that race, if I come first, if I get 100% or 90%. So now, because I have an innate need for emotional validation, I'm only performing. So now there is a boy, a young boy. He is about 9 years old. So actually, this is my son's story. I'll give you both sides of it. My son is 9 years old. He is not a very sporty guy. He doesn't like football and cricket, but we live in a community with this big turf and all of that. And he keeps trying to play football and cricket because boys are supposed to.
And to fit in.
Yeah. So he said, Mom, I want this Ronaldo and I don't even know their names, this
Messi,
footballer,
yeah,
all of that. So we went and we got some cutouts and we framed it in very masculine room. But in that masculine room, he sits and makes the most gorgeous art. He solves the Rubik's Cube. He reads Harry Potter. He's done with all the books. And that's him. He doesn't like to play sport. Now, his father is very, very accepting of this. And he says, well, it's okay. You don't have to play football. He's calm. He's tried and realized that his son is not inclined. Now, my son is actually growing up to be an extremely emotionally aware, kind guy. He's not trying to perform anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas, on the other hand, if his father pushed him, told him he's too thin, he's weak, he's fragile, he's this, he's that.
Or he's doing girly activities in the room instead of playing like boys do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He would be going down, losing touch with himself. The boy who likes to do art, who likes to read Harry Potter and watch sci-fi movies, and try and be someone he's expected to be, this tough guy who hits the ball into one goal and who says yeah and screams and all of that. So we are the ones who give our children the environment to be who they truly are or not.
Absolutely.
And then we're basically teaching them self-abandonment. You will be validated only if you abandon yourself and you do what you are supposed to do. Yeah. Not who you are or not what your soul wants you to do. And then I'm saying, but you should love yourself. So I'm thinking, self-love means you will come and tell me, well done. So now I will love myself because I did well.
Yeah.
Do you see what a toxic pattern we are creating? And then it becomes this big web of so many experiences and this whole unhealthy style of thinking that's taken over your whole life. And then at 40, you're like, damn. And now you have to undo this whole thing. And it's taking so much work. And you have forgotten this experience. So you have to go back there and find it. And then you're like, I can't do this. It's too tiring. Because now I have kids and I have a wife and I have all of that.
Also, I see when they reach that 40, like you said, instead of thinking, let me go back and let me redo or let me reset myself, I have seen the pattern is I need to run away, fall into addiction, disapprove of everybody because you've suppressed hundreds and hundreds of emotions you don't know how to deal with, and now you're feeling the lowest you've ever felt, or you've gone into this where you have substance abuse to fulfill yourself because you don't know what else is fulfilling. So there's so many dynamics into negative energy where the 40 plus are going towards because they say, I don't know what I want from my life.
And that's why you have affairs. Because you have chosen your partner at an early age based on old beliefs of shoulds. Now you've discovered yourself and you're like, damn, this is not working. But have this whole home and society and financial connections now where I can't break these ties. But now I've found a woman who's able to cater to the me I am discovering.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go have an affair.
Yeah.
And it all begins at that simple stage where the father said, be a man, go and kick a ball. Don't be a girl and paint.
So one is the father wound that we addressed. Then what we don't hear of so much is the mother wound. Can you tell me how the mother wound affects boys when they're young?
That's a wound usually unspoken about because she's mom. She cooks for me. She puts me to bed. She's held me for 9 months. She's delivered me. That big scar on her belly reminds me every day that she cut herself open for me. And she's so submissive and she serves my grandparents and dad shouts at her. And, she can't be wrong. But she may have completely destroyed me.
Yeah, the poor mom phase.
Yes. And how do I say anything about her? Because she's my mom. That in itself is the basis of the wound. Not being able to acknowledge that there are certain aspects of you that are wounded because of mistakes that she may have made unknowingly or knowingly.
Correct.
Right? So you don't want to address the wound only because as a man, your protective instinct towards a woman is anyways inherently high and your mom is even higher. So that is the basis of the wound. Now comes 2 things that mom would usually do for a wound. I'm not talking about a balanced, healthy mom. She'll either enmesh the child. She'll take over his life. My poor kid, he should not fall down. She'll go fight his battles. She will do his homework for him. She will fight with his teachers. So she is not helping him find his strength. She's not teaching him to find his strength. She's becoming his strength. So again, that creates a wound of codependency. I am not capable. Mom did so much for me that now I can't. There's no wound only. She gave up her whole life for me.
Yeah.
But she didn't let you find yourself. And that is a huge, huge problem that she has created for you in your whole life. Then there's that mom who was really preoccupied surviving. Let's say the single mom, or the mom who's in a really toxic marriage and her husband is not providing, or the mom who's having an affair, the father who's having an affair and she's just heartbroken. So now she's surviving. So now she's coping through overworking, fixing her finances, or she's just depressed all the time and not addressing his emotions, the child's emotions, or she's having an affair for her own emotional safety. In this whole process, she's unavailable to the boy. So now he's surviving without a mom.
That's again a wound.
That's again a wound. Then there's that mom who's so unhappy in her marriage that her counterpart becomes her son. Then there's that mom who's... So we all know that marriages at some point do become difficult. They fall apart. That whole emotional gratification in the marriage goes away. And usually the men are preoccupied because they're working. It's the mom who lands up being alone,
Correct.
feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Now, wanting a male counterpart is a natural instinct.
Absolutely.
So in its purest form, she goes and finds that balance in her son. Because he's a man, he has male energy, he's safe, and he instinctively fits into that yin-yang circle, right? You're cut out for each other, and he's a part of you. You only created him.
And he'll give all the love back, mirror your emotions that you wanted your husband to.
Correct. Unconditionally.
Correct.
You're not earning it at all. He's just so grateful to you, he's giving it to you. Right? So you'll end up becoming codependent on him, and he starts learning that love means abandoning myself Love means overgiving. Love means protection. Love means just being there for a woman holistically and fully, even if I am feeling burdened. Love means not setting boundaries, and so on and on and on and on.
If they have this mother wound of codependency,
Mhm.
they see their mother as their partner just because the mother saw the son as the partner.
On a subconscious
On a
level.
subconscious level. I'm saying
Yes.
on a subconscious level,
Yes.
where somewhere deep down they rely on the mother for everything because the mother's relying on you.
Correct.
So if today I start relying on you as a friend for everything,
Mm.
automatically somewhere we'll form that bond where
Correct.
we call each other up for every little thing. Now the same thing happens between the mother and the son. I think what also happens is here the son has gone into adulthood, not realizing he's an adult, and goes into a marriage, not even realizing that he still has this going, and will still see the mother as the second half.
Mm.
We'll find it very difficult to see the wife who has come in, the girlfriend who has come in, or even the siblings that he has. He will keep going back to the mother being that source of partnership.
And he may be unfulfilled, but he has been taught to be responsible for her emotions. Usually, such men are unfulfilled. They're doing it out of responsibility. They're doing it because they're taught. They're not fulfilled. Youth demands that you have intimacy, emotional, sexual. Youth demands you go out with your friends and you have late nights. Youth demands you flirt around with women. Youth demands you work high on energy, you sleep late, you wake up late. I mean,
Yeah.
healthy or not, but youth demands these things out of you. It gives you energy,
Frivolousness.
freedom,
Yeah, freedom.
right? Now we lose this freedom as young boys because we have been taught that my unhappy mother is my responsibility. So I'm constantly in a state of guilt because I'm not being able to provide to my girlfriend because I'm attached to another woman. I'm not being able to give her fully because I owe you my life. I am responsible for your emotions and your safety and your happiness. So I am making all choices based on the responsibility I'm feeling towards you, and you're not going to be happy about it.
Yeah.
How are you happy? She's your mom. She's supposed to be just your mom, not your partner, but you've been taught and conditioned and you don't even know that. So you're working on auto.
I'm sure there's deep down bitterness in that relationship, just not accepted on the surface.
Correct. And then you subconsciously self-sabotage. So you land up ruining your partnership, your friendships, and you probably don't even find a partner, and you're 40 and you're thinking, I'm so lonely, I need a partner. Mom is going through this. I have to be there for mom, but I need a partner because only a partner can fulfill those needs that you really have.
Yeah.
And
And
you're
equal.
yes, and equal. And you're wondering, why aren't you finding a partner? And you have to detach from your mom. But how do you detach from a woman who's 70, 80?
Then the pity factor also comes in. So
Correct.
old.
Correct.
How can I do this?
Correct. So you're living in guilt. So there's this a person I know, and he's in his mid 50s, divorced twice, extremely attached to his mom. He's a very, very, very rich man. He owns a lot of houses. He owns a building, in fact. But he chooses to live in the same house as his mother because the father has been physically abusive to this lady her whole life. And this boy, since he was a young child, would jump in front of the mom and spread his hands, and the father would stop. So he learned at a very young age that I need to protect my mom.
He's the savior.
He's the savior. Now, this mom didn't leave the abusive husband, chose to stay. Is that on the son?
No.
No. She chose to pick the boy up and use him as a shield every time she felt threatened. Is that on the son?
No.
No. Son didn't know that she used him as a shield. Son thought, I
I
am
am.
saving her. Right?
Yeah.
This man, very, very attached to his mom, started believing that mom will not survive if I don't protect her. Got married, found this amazing girl, married, all of that. She left him emotionally unavailable, stuck to the mom. Mom, I don't know, consciously or subconsciously, kept sabotaging all his destroying all his relationships because she
Because
needed her son. She was codependent on him.
Yeah.
Son kept saying, my wife is bad, divorce one, second marriage, divorce two, still lonely, still seeking partnership, still living with his mom. Not in a separate house that's up or down, in the same house. When mom gets feels unwell or gets anxiety, we start developing that anxiety at an old age.
Yeah.
She will call him, he sleeps with her. How is a wife going to tolerate that? Now, I'm not saying we should abandon our parents. I'm just saying that we need to find a balance.
Boundaries.
No matter how much I try to talk to him and explain to him where his loneliness is coming from, he can't receive it because he's so clouded by his role of being her protector, her savior, her guardian, her guide, that he can't see why he is this lonely.
I think this kind of emotional unhealthiness in men also leads them to think that women they are becoming friends with or partners with or coming to their life are trying to ruin who I am because they're shaking that belief, right? And nobody wants their beliefs to be shaken. So if his belief is I am the Superman in my mom's life and a wife or a girlfriend or a friend has come in, like you're a friend,
Yeah.
and you threaten that image,
Yeah.
they will be like, oh my god, how can you threaten this image that I've built of myself subconsciously, my mother has built for me, and the equation that we have, you're trying to ruin it.
Correct.
So I think healing is very far in this equation. I think first just understanding that this is a wound, you're still feeding into a childhood wound. I think that would be a start.
I think he knows this, but I don't think his guilt is allowing him to accept it and process it and acknowledge it. And also, like you said so beautifully, the Superman syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm a superhero.
Exactly. And the girl who
Yeah.
walks in says, I don't do nothing.
Correct.
So she has no idea I am already a Superman.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's what I'm saying. That image that we built of ourselves, if it's threatened by anybody, then we automatically distance ourselves. We don't even see that whether we need to correct that
Yeah.
narrative of ourselves to ourselves.
Correct.
We just think this is a threat, and as humans, whenever threat comes, we run.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
why they'll end up running from this.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do cultural messages like man up, don't cry, you're a boy, be strong, affect the way boys grow up emotionally, and how does this show up in their relationships after marriage?
I think man up, be strong, boys don't cry, don't act like a girl are very simple statements, but what they do is create trauma. This is trauma because you are being, again, taught to abandon yourself, to betray yourself, right? So if you're not going to be true to yourself and you're going to abandon yourself, how can I be there for you? When I am already a self-traitor, so to say, then I can't be there for you. And even if I'm there for you on paper, it's because I'm looking for validation.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when there's trauma, what is trauma? Trauma is a threat. It's a lack of safety. Trauma means that take care and arm up. I can't be soft. I can't expose myself. I can't see myself. I can't let you see myself. So I'm going to wear an armor because I'm not safe. Like at war, you go out with an armor, you have a shield, you have your weapons. They're all hard. You don't like put one soft blanket around yourself and go to war.
Yeah.
Right? Everything that you use for protection is hard. So when I am in a state of trauma, every safety net that I'm going to reach out to is going to be hard. They're going to be walls. It's going to be made of iron. I'm going to be unavailable. I'm going to hide. If there's this attack happening, you go into the basement, right? So every coping technique that I will use will be avoidant and escapism. So how can I be there for my partner?
I think you've explained that very beautifully. And I hope that, forget what happened in the previous generations. We can't go back in time and change them. But I think it's very important for mothers bringing up sons in today's day and age to be aware of this. Fathers who may be again projecting this male energy and saying this is the only way to be a man, stop doing it. Because if we want the next generation to be functioning in a better way, we want to see less disasters, then we got to let them learn that emotional regulation is everything.
It's everything.
How much do childhood friendships, especially with other boys, shape men in how they handle themselves and their relationships in the future?
We spend a lot of time with our friends, right? That's where we perform the most. We play maximum roles. We are fighting for hierarchy to rule the group. We're discovering ourselves. That's where we rebel. You can't come home and rebel at home or in school. Maximum self-discovery happens in your peer groups. And your self-identification also happens there.
Correct.
Now, do these young boys even know or have the concept of providing a safe environment? No. So they can break you. And if you break through, then you grow up resilient. If you get pushed around, you start thinking I'm weak, I'm fragile, right? Now, how do they learn to provide safety to their peers? Where does that come from? Their homes. Again, it goes back to your parents and how your father behaves and how your mom behaves. Is she enmeshing you? Is she over mollycoddling you? Is she avoidant? Is he avoidant? Is he present? Is he emotionally aware? It all goes back down to that. That's where they learn kindness, they learn emotional expression, they learn how to provide safety. I'll go back to my son's example now. He can't play football or cricket and he's not really interested. But he's a boy. And there are times that he wants to. When he tries, they push him out of the turf. So again, he's forced back into the art and all of that. He's not being provided the space to even try. And then to protect himself from going through that rejection and so-called failure over and over again, now he believes
it's not for him.
I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't think cricket's my thing. I don't think sport's my thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when the match happened here last month, he went for the match, met the football players, took selfies, spoke to them, and he was so excited. The next day, he wore his new studs, ran to the turf, and he got kicked out. As a mother, am I going to go fight for him?
No.
I can't.
And one shouldn't.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't know how to stand up for himself ever otherwise.
Correct. So I had to teach him, and he went and he got kicked out again. So it's all a process. It's a work in progress.
Also, I think it's very important to tell your children, like that's what I do with my son. My son is also 9. I tell him that a lot of times when people have harsh and cruel things to say, I remind him, I said, you can be kind because you don't know what environment that child is coming from.
Absolutely.
So I always tell my son, it's very easy to be like, oh, that kid's a bully and that kid calls me names. So that kid doesn't let me play in the cool circle, the football circle or whatever. So I say, you have no idea what that child is going through. I give him examples of what if your friend or your classmate is being bullied at home by the older sibling. What if that child is being bullied by the father? What if the child has absent parents? You sit and eat dinner with us. I play board games with you. Dad sits and does reading time with you. You have this equation going with your parents. What if the other child doesn't? Hence, he finds it easy to come to school and portray all those negative emotions onto you or to other kids, whoever they're bullying. So, I think sometimes it's important to even tell your kids that you're not lacking something. It could be someone telling you you're lacking because they are lacking at home.
Correct.
You know, one is emotional regulation for your own child, but one is teaching them to see emotional regulation not happening in other people's lives, so that their voice doesn't become your inner voice.
Correct.
That's what I try and tell him, that if people or if other kids call you chubby, do you become chubby? And he's like, no. I said, so if tomorrow they say you look like a brown horse, do you become a brown horse? He's like, no. I said, that's because you know you're human. You know you're not a brown horse. So tell yourself, I'm not chubby. Ask yourself, if you feel chubby, then you have to work on yourself. But if you don't feel, then nobody's opinion can make that of you.
Correct.
So it's very important to even tell boys that why are other boys behaving like this?
Absolutely. And then this takes you back to what we spoke about, your primary seed. I am. Period.
Yeah.
Undefined, unvalidated, unpraised, uncriticized, everything I simply am. That's it.
Because we are simply am.
Yeah.
We are also moving up so many ladders in our life of emotions, career, relationships, financial, and we have all these arrays, right, to cover, and we
Yeah.
evolve in that process.
Yeah.
So what you are today at 9, you won't be at 19, you won't be at 29, certainly not at 39, because life also would have taught you so many things.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very important. You're absolutely right that I am, because tomorrow will bring another I am,
Correct.
and then years later will be another I am.
Another I am.
But if it's all fulfilled with validations and rejections and waiting for other people to approve you, then it's a dead end.
It is, absolutely. Or a bottomless pit. You're just like free falling, endlessly looking for something that you're never going to get.
Absolutely. I agree. So, how does forgiving yourself, forgiving your parents, and forgiving others help in the healing process and moving forward?
A lot of times we think that forgiveness has something to do with the other person. She doesn't deserve my forgiveness. What you're technically saying is that I am worthy of carrying all this weight and having shoulder pain and neck pain and back pain because I'm carrying so much burden of anger, resentment, revenge, etc. Contempt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I forgive a particular person, what I'm technically doing is freeing myself. It comes down to me. I forgive you because I want to cut ties with you. I don't want your energy in my space and I'm tired of carrying this burden.
I think you very categorically have explained how forgiveness works, and I think people largely misunderstand it, and they also see it as a favor. I will forgive her because I don't want to feel this way. But that favor you only have to do to yourself.
Correct.
You know, you have to abandon that trigger. You have to tell yourself, I don't need that trigger in my life. I don't need that wound in my life. Only then can you progress. But people start associating all of that with the other person. The weightage is given to the other person, that they made me feel like this. They don't deserve forgiveness. Or I'll forgive that person because, you know what, I don't care.
I'm the bigger person.
Yeah, but you do care. And
Yeah.
being a bigger person would be really understanding what the wound was about.
Absolute. Well said. Absolutely. That is the truest bigger person. Let me go and process why I'm so triggered. Why am I hurting? Why am I holding on to this?
Yeah.
What is it triggering in me? Let's go and solve that instead of focusing on the external. But then that's easier. It's easier for me to focus on you than to go into the layers of myself.
Correct. Absolutely.
So basically, when I am forgiving you, technically what I'm doing is abandoning not myself. I'm abandoning the trigger. I'm unburdening myself. In fact, I'm being true to myself.
Correct.
That is why it's one of the most key factors for healing. Let me empty this bag of pain and trauma and anger, resentment, contempt, and refill it with happiness, love, healing, trauma release, etc. So that now I'm healed and lighter and happier.
I think that was the most intriguing conversation I've had in a long time. And I think that is also the most thought-provoking. And I hope people don't see this as an attack on manhood, because this may come across like that. But it is actually addressing deep down, like you said, healing is the only way forward. So I hope people can see it for that.
No, it's not an attack on manhood. It's an attack on conditioning. It's an attack on what we as women are teaching our boys. I have a son myself. So, what I do with him, how much I enmesh him or mollycoddle him or overprotect him or abandon him or avoid him and not create space for him, he's going to listen to this later and say, Mom,
Yeah.
you messed up, which I will. We will all mess up as moms because we're also a work in progress. We're also learning. So, as parents, father and mother, the key is not to bring up boys or girls through a formula. It's to simply keep working on yourself.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'll go into the last segment, which is Burst the Bubble. I ask you a few fun questions and tell me whatever comes to your mind first. What single piece of advice would you give to parents raising boys today?
Validate their emotions. Do not base it on achievements.
What's one question about male psychological development that you wish more people would ask?
Who taught you that strong is good? And what were you taught to become? And who do you really want to be?
One quality men think that is an advantage in boys, but actually a huge disadvantage.
Not addressing your emotions and allowing it to manifest through anger and rage.
One parenting skill mothers mistake as love that's deeply harmful for boys.
Overprotection.
I completely agree there. What's one toxic phrase boys hear growing up that shapes their adult identity negatively?
This is a very common phrase, very standard, heard all over the place, but is extremely harmful. Boys don't cry.
What's one behavior boys learn from their fathers that they carry as emotional baggage?
I think it would be avoidance. Just shutting down, passive aggression.
So men are known at a higher risk of suffering from heart diseases, loneliness, mental diseases as well. Can you tell me why?
First of all, men are taught at a very young age to be disconnected from themselves by teaching them that your emotions are not good. So that is the basis of loneliness because I'm not connected to myself. And I'm also taught that it's unhealthy for me to reach out for help, to go and say, I'm feeling fragile, I'm feeling weak, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling broken. So not only am I inducing loneliness, I am also creating an environment that isolates me because I'm not going to ask for help. Right? Now, I think in 2022, in the Journal of the American Heart Association, if I'm saying it correctly, there was a study that said that men, because they are lonely, have an increased risk of heart attacks by 30 to 40% because of this baseline conditioning that they live by. Hi, this is Sohini Rohra. I had a great conversation with Ashna on Therapy Diaries. We spoke about everything from the Peter Pan syndrome to parental wounds to why boys are still told not to cry and what it really takes to raise healthy boys. You can catch the episode on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from.